Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, brutal today. Keep, sell, loan. We're going to be reviewing the squad from last season and see where we're at heading into this season. Obviously, at the point in time, there's been no signings yet, and I mean it would be cruel to decide to sell a new signing anyway. So naturally, it's just going to be last season's squad. Let's do it, mate. Let's get into this.
Let's go. Let's go.
I think it's only fair that we start with a few keeps. You know, keep the mood up, keep the mood high.
Absolutely.
Emi Martinez, obviously a keep. I assume you've listened to his bits on the Fozcast over the past few days, mate.
Mate, it's hard to everything that this man says or does. It's like he's got to be like he's one of my favorite ever Villa players at this point. Like every word that comes out of this man's mouth is just like, as a fan, it is exactly what you want to hear. It's like gospel. Like every time this man like is on a podcast or anything like that, it's like he can't say it quickly enough. That he wants to win a trophy here. He wants to stay. He loves the club. Like it's. I don't think have we ever seen like a player from outside of England like really come and embody this club like this before. He might be like a first of his kind to really come here and be like, yeah, this is it for me. I love it here. I want to stay. I want to win a trophy. It's like Villa fans were coming through and saying this would be one thing, but for this guy, for like Argentina to come all the way over here and just fall in love like this, I just wanted to stay forever, let alone next season.
Build the statue, mate. We got to build the statue. I think there's quite. I think it's fair to say there's going to be quite a few in the keep section, right? So I think straight away, let's throw Pau Torres in there. He's been phenomenal. Let's throw. I can't see him now. I mean, they're all right in front of me, but they're all so small. I can't actually see who's who. Let's go. Kamara. He can stay and keep. He's been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Ollie Watkins. We're obviously keeping Ollie Watkins, aren't we, mate?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
He's our goal scorer. He's the next 100 million man if he does leave.
Yeah,
he would take that to even entertain any offers. He's so important to this team. I think there's been a lot of talk about Arsenal needing a striker to win the title. As much as I adore Ollie and I think so highly of him, I don't actually think that he's the striker that Arsenal need, if I'm being completely honest. I think that striker is probably Alexander Isak, and I don't think there'll be many Geordies listening to this podcast, but I don't think they'll forgive me for saying that. But I don't see Ollie leaving, mate.
No, I don't think so. I think the cost that you'd want for us to be able to then go out and buy another goal scorer that's capable of getting 20, 30 goals in all comps in an Aston Villa shirt is probably also around that figure. There have been kind of chances around someone like Joshua Zirkzee, kind of rumours, but I think that's to come in as well as rather than instead of Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, you got to supplement that attack, right? We need more firepower, not less. I think that's
Absolutely.
the biggest takeaway. I've just noticed this tier list doesn't have Joe Gauchi, but it does have Bertrand Traore. So considering he's left, I'm going to stick him in sell. Sorry, Bert.
Yes.
If we had our way, you'd be here forever. But Bertie, you're in the cell, mate. John McGinn, club captain, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the fullbacks are the point of contention in the squad, aren't they, mate? We've talked about this a few times. Where do you stand on the Dean Moreno debate? Because Dean 150 grand a week reportedly. Moreno hasn't been the same since that sort of, I don't want to call it a purple patch, but back end of last season, his first season signing, not the season just gone. He was phenomenal. He was unplayable. He was like the best left back in the world. I was convinced I was watching the Spanish Marcelo. But Dean he's been that guy this season, hasn't he, mate? He's proved a lot of us wrong.
Yeah. We've been so quick to praise him on this podcast, haven't we, mate? Because you and I sat here about 12 months ago discussing rumour after rumour that Luka Dean was going to be off, that there were Qatari clubs, that there were Saudi Arabian clubs even vying for his signature, that Villa just had to get him off the books. And so when Moreno picked picked up that injury, there was the feeling, at least from the outside, that Villa maybe had to eat humble pie, really, and be like, actually, we kind of need you to stick around. And I can't sing Luke Dean's praises enough. I really can't. The fact that like he must have been aware of all of that noise and then just dialed in for this season, like, came a real fan's favourite. He was great on social with another one, like thing after wins. Just seems to really, really enjoy playing in Claret and Blue this season. But as you rightly say, that big old contract that we used to lure him away from Everton just continues to come up as something that just isn't sustainable for the club to kind of work with long term. Both of them are around the same age now, coming into their early 30s, and so I don't think we'd be looking to sell both. But would it surprise me if one left of the two? I don't think so. But given the nature of this video, it is now on you and I to decide which one it is.
I think it has to be, and I'm saying it through gritted teeth, but I think it has to be Dean Sell, just purely for the wages. I do think he's better than Moreno. I think I've come full circle. I think Dean is better than Moreno, but I think I have to put Dean in Sell, mate, and I think we have to put Moreno in keep. We'll come back at the end, and I think we'll change. We'll allow ourselves 2 changes at the end if we're not feeling. But I think for now, we have to have those fullbacks there. Zaniolo's on the list. We'll just obviously pop him in Sell, with that being a loan that has expired. Shame it didn't work out. He was wearing a Villa shirt on his Instagram story the other day while his foot was in a boot. Looks like he's going to miss the Euros, which is a damn shame because it kind of feels like that was the purpose of this whole loan from him, to get himself back in contention for that squad. So it is,
and he had been playing as well. Like over the international breaks, he'd been playing for Italy as well. So it looked like he would have been going to Germany this summer.
It's really sad, mate. It's really sad. I know we're probably in a minority of Villa fans that do think there's a player in there, but it didn't work out, did it? So unfortunately, he will be back to Gala, maybe angling for a move back to his home country in Italy. Robin Olsen, mate. Is he a keep? Is Robin Olsen a keep? You're not getting a fee.
Yeah. If you are, it's not much, is it?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one because I think this hinges on what our plans are for Joe Gauci.
Yeah, who is famously not on this tier list.
Yeah, exactly. I think, can we just, whilst we're here, just shout out to Oliver Zype?
Yes.
Zype. Who's going to the bloody, he's in the provisional squad for the bloody Euros.
Massive.
It's insane. And so there you go. There's another goalkeeper that we have waiting in the wings. That is seemingly ready to kind of that number 2 shirt is a big old question mark for next season, and it's interesting in that, do I think either Zyte or Gauci is ready to play number 2 for Aston Villa? Probably not. And I do believe we have far more pressing business to be done this season than at goalkeeper, and so, given that we've heard absolutely no chatter about a backup goalkeeper coming in, I'm inclined to say, just to keep the amount of business, and if we were to sell or release or whatever would happen to Robin Olsen, inevitably his replacement would have to come at a significant loss to Villa. We'd have to pay way more than we would get in return for Robin Olsen if someone were to pay for him. And in the kind of FFP world in which we live, that just feels a little bit stupid. And I have to say that when he was our number 2 this season, I actually thought he played quite well.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's fair. He's definitely not Emi Martinez, but who is? So I think on that note, we shove him in keep. We'll put him next to Emi, goalkeepers union. Loan, mate. Loan. I'm banging Tim straight in the loan section. I think that's the most dead cert in that category. I think you and I both hoped for him to have featured a bit more, especially given the injury problems. And I think it's quite telling, really, that he didn't. in terms of where he stands in the squad and in Unai's eyes. If you can get a good loan for Tim, I think it will do him the world of good because he just needs to play at his age, and then we can sort of take stock in the following season and see where or if he slots into Unai's plans. I do think there's a player there, but kid just needs to play, mate, doesn't he?
I think you've got to. I think we'll sell eventually to Eric Burnham, given that he's, even Kamanach and Aaron Ramsey couldn't avoid that fate. But what I will say is, I do believe that I think it's worth one last season with a gamble on a loan to really try and drive his value up, because it feels like we really couldn't get anything substantial for him now. And so you've got to hope that there's most likely a championship club that's willing to come in and take him on loan, that he goes in there, performs better than he did at QPR, raises his value, and then in 12 months' time we could flip him for more than we could now. I think there's enough sellable assets at good fees in this squad to warrant ourselves another year to take another gamble on Tim, because, and this isn't to say he's a bad player, but it's hard to imagine in 12 months his stock is going to be much lower in the transfer market than he is now. I don't even know what kind of fee Tim Eric Burnham would command right now. So yeah, I think put him on loan, see what he can do, if he can impress over 12 months, and then probably, you're probably looking to sell on a similar kind of deal as Cam and AJ, and maybe see him back at the Villa at some point in the future.
Yeah, you never know, mate. You never know. But I think let's plough on with a few sells, mate. It pains me to put Callum Chambers here, but he's got to go. Just a burden on the wage bill, despite some fantastic performances. Maybe I'm exaggerating there. Donk. Wow, I forgot we had him until I see the tier list. We're gonna put Donk in sell.
Yes,
whatever you can get. Again, just unfortunately a burden on the wage bill. We'll come back to sell actually, because I think there's a few more that probably could go in this section. Ramsey has to go and keep. He's the star boy. He's the piece de resistance. When he's fit, he's phenomenal. I just realised there's no Morgan Rogers in this tier list. There's no Morgan Rogers. There's no Rogers. There's no Coutinho. Yeah, Rogers is definitely a keep. Absolutely, one of the Villa Fillers' favourite players right now, Morgan Rogers.
Absolutely.
Tielemans, definitely a keep. Although, if somebody said 20 million, take it or leave it, I'd consider it.
Yeah, I think this is where we've got, I can actually harsh at some point here, aren't we, mate? Obviously, I think there's Villa players, and we can come on to them, that have already discussed. The club seems to be kind of, quietly ushering onto the market. And whilst Yuri Tielemans has proved a lot of us Villa fans wrong this season, obviously had a very cold start, but really turned it around towards the end. I think someone like JJ is such a unique profile, as is someone like John McGinn. I think you'd really struggle to find another type of those players. I think there are more Yuri Tielemans in the world than someone like John McGinn or someone like a Douglas Luiz. So I think they're in kind of a different echelon altogether. And so on that basis alone, it feels incredibly hard. You don't want to sell any of these players, but if you are to sell some and say that, I'm pretty confident we could go onto the market and find another one of those players, he probably does fall into that category. I think we'll keep him in keep for now, but he's one of those ones that, it pushed. You could strike up a deal there, I think.
Yeah, I think there's actually more players than we will probably acknowledge that for sale, really, mate, aren't there? But Leon Bailey's not one of them. He's going straight in keep. And
absolutely
is Moussa Diaby. I don't know if that's controversial, but we love Moussa on this podcast.
Oh, mate, absolutely. His remontada is coming. I mean, Leon Bailey has laid the blueprint there for the kind of how to turn it around seems harsh, but how to level up your Aston Villa career. The blueprint is right there for him to follow.
It is, mate. It is, and we've gone this far. I can't believe I've left it this long. Esri Konsa, obviously in keep, phenomenal. Stepped up in ways that I don't think we perhaps credited him for being possible. He's been phenomenal in the absence of Tyrone Mings, and yeah, I mean, he's going nowhere fast. I actually think we're really lucky that somebody like Jared Branthwaite has burst onto the scene in the manner that he has, and you've got all the sort of United willing to pay 70 million talk for Branthwaite, because that's deflected perfectly away from Conte, this sort of limelight from the top clubs that are going to be looking to purchase a good English centre half. So delighted for that one, mate. We've got 6 players left on this tier list, and I think these are probably some of the most difficult to call, because with PSR, FFP, whatever you want to call it these days, it's always got a new name every week. Somebody has to go. Somebody big has to go, and we've already kept, quite definitively a fair few players in the keep section, like your Watkins, your Consers, your Emmys, your Boobers, who would fetch a large fee in keep. Now I look at someone like Emi Buendia, and I think with the injury and just his general ability as well, he will be a keep. I think he's got another 18 months at the very least, see what he's like, get him back in the squad, and then perhaps if he isn't up to the level, which I think he will be, then potentially he looks to move on. But again, I don't think Emi is a player that is going to be moved on. Douglas Luiz is the main one, isn't it, mate? Douglas is the one you look at and you go, yeah, 80 mil. And that gets us out of this little hole that we're allegedly in.
Well, this is the thing, and this is the kind of what Villa have to make up on is do you try and accumulate that? Because I think we're going to have to raise, that looks like 50, kind of 60 million in player sales, a hefty fee. And do you take it in one big hit, lose a key player and try and replace that? Or do you try and sell, there's been rumours around, I'm sure we'll get on to Diego Carlos, for example. We spoke about someone like Yuri Tielemans there. Hard to believe that, Felipe Coutinho is still under contract at the club. And so I don't think we're going to get too much there, but you know what I mean? And, we kind of spoke briefly about Robin Olsen, and do you try and slowly piece together that puzzle to try and get up to that fee, or do you go bang in one hit? Try to sell Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz, for me, is, I think we'd really struggle to come in and get a player that is as good as him. I hold him in such high regard, but, when we were seeing rumours around Weston McKennie, we spoke about those on the last episode, and he is, he's been linked to be part of that swap deal to maybe go to Juventus, and then Weston would come to us to try and kind of both clubs balance the books that way. It is from Gazzetta, who they're not massively right, or they're not right at all, really, initially, to be honest with you. So to be taken with a pinch of salt. But we know Arsenal have been very, very keen in the past. We know that they've levelled several bids. Have they moved on from that? Rumours that, Thomas Partey is going to be leaving. Would that open the door for them to go and get another midfielder? I feel like Declan Rice was their midfielder, and I feel like he was a kind of either and or with Douglas Luiz. So maybe that's ages, but there's certainly been the noise around Dougie for some time, mate.
Yeah, that's the problem, and I think it has to be said, Douglas Luiz is the best footballer at Aston Villa Football Club right now. Natural ability, he is levels above everyone else, mate. He's phenomenal, a joy to watch. Joga Bonito, you just love to see it, right? But I think if you have to sell, and again it is with gritted teeth, I think it is Douglas, and I do think he's the hardest to replace. But me personally, I'm not prepared to part ways with Jacob Ramsey. I'm not prepared to part ways with Ollie Watkins. I'm not prepared to part ways with Ezri Konsa. And, through process of elimination, I guess it has to be Douglas. And I can see the riots in the comments now as I'm moving Douglas into the cell. We've got 2 changes, guys. We're going to change 2 of these positions at the end.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I think at the end, we can have a look at who's in that cell column. And then if we can say that, between those players minus Douglas, there's a decent chunk of money there, then we can, roll happily moving back into that column. However, I think if we get to the end and we're like, it doesn't feel like enough for us to go and build a Champions League caliber squad, then it's got to be someone, mate. It's got to be someone.
Somebody has to give. Somebody has to give. And I think one of the first sales that, again, may be controversial, I don't think it is. And again, I love this player. It's got to be John Duran, mate, hasn't it? John Duran is on the for sale list, if there was one.
Yeah. We love John Duran. I think he's won a lot of Villa fans over, but he don't want to be here, and it doesn't really feel like he's ever really been that happy here. Then there are players that we can go and get that are, and it's interesting. He is a player, and the one thing that I will say on this sale is that you're almost reliant on Chelsea coming in to get a kind of fee that would allow someone like Douglas Luiz to stay. Because I think, we paid a hefty fee for John Duran. You were looking at getting up to kind of £20 million, if memory serves. And so, we want to recuperate that as a very minimum. But to be honest with you, there's not a great list of clubs in world football right now that are going to be like, yeah, I'll give you 25, it's 30 million for John Duran. Chelsea would. Chelsea definitely would. That's the kind of stupid thing that they would do. However, if it isn't Chelsea, then I think you're probably looking at selling him to Spain. And they just won't do that. Unless, someone like an Atleti or someone like that comes in. I think if you're looking at middle of the road kind of Spanish clubs, they're not going to, for some clubs, that's kind of record, purchase money. And they're not going to put that on John Duran. And so for me, he's definitely in the sale column. It's just interesting whether Chelsea come and kind of throw us a lifeline there, to be honest with you, because I think they're the type of club that might. We have seen, Milan links and kind of other clubs, and I think if it's clubs of that stature, you can look at making a profit. But if it is to kind of second tier of club, then I think you're going to, I don't want to say struggle to make that money back, but it's just whether anyone feasibly would pay that.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea, there's the phenomenal defensive midfielder from Belgium called Leander Dendoncker, if you're interested. I'm sure 25 mil would get us talking for Leander Dendoncker. Imagine. But I think that kind of leads us on to Diego, doesn't it, mate? I think he's not had the time at Villa I think he would have hoped for with the injuries. And as much as I genuinely believe that in the big games, Diego Carlos is one of our best defenders, and I think the sort of stats will prove that and back my point. Against the big teams, he always shows up. It's the games against the Bournemouths of the world and the Fulhams and the Burnleys that really worry me. And, for somebody who's like 6'4", built like a brick shit house, like one scary looking mofo, he's like frightened of heading a ball. And I think that's something that Howe is obviously guilty of as well, but I think he makes up for it in other factors of his game. And again, I could point out many a Diego Carlos monster class against Arsenal, City, Spurs, where he's stepped up and I genuinely think he's been our best player. But it's not consistent enough. And there's been talk of AC Milan again. You get 10 mil, maybe 15 mil. It's a no-brainer for me, really, mate.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's not a kind of great... I have to give him credit because I really worried about him post-injury at all, to be honest with you, given that, you're kind of looking at a 30, 31-year-old defender who's very stocky, very, like his physique is crazy. He's absolutely huge. Who's never been particularly fleet-footed doing a knee injury at that kind of severity. The fact he kind of was able to come back and play at kind of the level that he did is remarkable, really. And so, but what you are looking at there is if you don't sell now, that value will depreciate, and it will depreciate quickly as you start to look at Diego Carlos post ACL that is now 32, 33. So the time to cash in is now. And John Townley of the Athletic was saying that he, along with Dean, is one of the highest paid players at the club, and he's not. The problem is, like, and if you keep Luca Deans and Diego Carlos's, and I'd like to think that this isn't kind of the squad to do this, but you do get unrest. I know that kind of some of these players have signed do new deals recently. But if I'm Ollie Watkins, if I'm Owen Martinez, if I'm Ezri Konsa, if I'm John McGinn, all of these guys that have just been absolutely exceptional this season. If I'm then, you're knocking on, Unai Emery's door, whoever it is you talk about these things to, and sort of saying that, why aren't I earning what he's earning? And so I think you want to make sure that you're always in a healthy position with your highest earners, and it doesn't really feel like Villa are at the moment. And so I think for that and kind of that alone, you've got to try and show that, yeah, we're not entirely happy with that situation. We're kind of looking to move on from it. And it's a shame for Diego, because I say I'm really impressed with how he's kind of been able to turn it around, to be honest with you. But a good bit of money, and I think we sell.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And that kind of leaves us with the two players left on this tier list, arguably two of the most difficult ones to place. Psych, Matty Cash, and sell. No, but it's not as easy as that, is it? I think you need a good right back coming in, and the money needs to be right. And if we are talking strategy here, mate, and if we have got an eye on moving Dougie out of the sell into the keep bracket, then Matty Cash just goes, doesn't he? I feel like I'm being really harsh. I feel like again, up and down relationship personally with Cashy. I just when I think he's turned a leaf, he gets injured, and we're sort of knocked back a few steps, aren't we? Bit of drama with him in Poland as well, mate. Didn't get called up.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like his grasp of the language isn't where the Polish FA would like it to be. And for that reason, and maybe not just that reason, possibly down to form as well, he's not going to Euro 2024, which is a bit crap for him personally. But like, I genuinely think that he needs this summer off, like, to get back to his full self and to get himself out of the sell category that I've preemptively put him in. He needs proper time to rest and recuperate and come back strong in pre-season.
But he decided to impress Unai Emery. Regardless of what you or I think about Matty Cash, we know that Unai is not his biggest fan. We know that Ezri Konsa has kind of made that position his own. Whether that's a permanent role for Ezri Konsa, I don't know. But we know that he's not a massive fan of Matty Cash. And let's have it right now. Let's have it right now. Some huge moments from Matty Cash this season. Some huge, Lille away. Incredible. Enabled us that penalty shootout win, put us in the, and the road didn't go, to plan, but it looked like, we were never even going to get that tie with Olympiacos at that point. There was that brace at Burnley. There's been some really, really big moments from Matty Cash, but we know that Unai is not his biggest fan. And this one for me is actually, surprisingly enough, despite me, I really like Matty Cash, but there's players in the cell, namely Douglas Luiz in the cell tier right now, that I'd much rather keep at the club. But what I will say about Matty Cash is that you're probably going to have to sell him to another English team. And that's always uncomfortable. And I think that will be uncomfortable when we're operating at this kind of level in the league, because we have some very good players. Matty Cash is a very good player, and put in the right system, I think he can do really, really well. I think he'd be a fantastic asset for another club. And so that does make me a little bit uncomfortable, I will be honest, because I think he's a kind of player that I could see us selling and him going on to do quite well, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't think Unai is his biggest fan. Unai has a far better footballing brain than I. And I think that's kind of where that is.
Yeah, I think we leave him in the sell category there, mate. I think we leave him in the sell. And final player that we've got on this tier list is Tyrone Mings. This is a really tricky one to place.
Oh.
Did you see the video of him working out in Philly again from today?
Yeah.
His leg still doesn't look right. Yeah, no. That does not look like a healthy knee just yet. His left leg is still just massive,
mate. Yeah,
I said on a podcast a few weeks ago, didn't I? I kind of see a move to Ipswich. I think do we put him in loan? Sell feels harsh. I've put him in loan. Maybe sell. Maybe keep. I love Tyrone.
I'm gonna keep him. I think you 1 year. I think I don't think his stock will depreciate so much that you can't still. I think Ipswich stay up in the Premier League. That's a lovely place for him. I am a little bit worried. I was like Diego Carlos, and Tyrone has chosen to be very open with his rehabilitation, and Carlos was not. Diego Carlos could have been looking like this for all that we know, kind of prior to his return. And Tyrone's got the rest of this summer to to put that right. It doesn't look great, but yeah, Tyrone has been very open, very transparent with his rehab. There's been a lot of updates on social, and I think that's to his credit. But I think what it has meant is that for the 99% of the population that haven't been through kind of ACL rehabilitation, surgery, etc., just how shaky that process can look. I think it would be interesting to kind of know, how does Tyrone compare to other cases like this? Is this common? Because it doesn't really feel like too many footballers give this kind of access to their social media followers, basically. And so we kind of have nothing else to gauge it on. It doesn't look great, but is that normal at this kind of stage of the season? Should it look better? Should it look worse? Is he head behind? We don't know what that kind of timeline looks like. And so I think you have to give Tyrone that opportunity to kind of come back and show it. Let me put it this way. If we have it wrong and that knee is fine and Tyrone can kind of hit that level and kind of play, selling him, particularly to another English team, is a huge mistake. He's an England caliber centre half. As a left-footed, one of the more unique centre-back profiles in the Premier League. Where else are you going to find a 6'6" left-footed centre half that can dribble with the ball? You're not. And so if we sell him, there's a huge amount. I'd rather give us the chance to see what he's got, allow him the chance to get back to Villa Park. He deserves the chance to welcome in Champions League nights at Villa Park, along with Ginny, along with JJ, like those boys that have been with us on that whole journey. Give him that opportunity, assess where he's at for a season, and then I think we do one of these every year, mate. We can kind of see where he's at. But I think if we were to sell him now, there's a decent chance we do end with egg on our faces. And whilst I don't think we may not get the Tyrone Mings of old, you've got to say that there's definitely still a player there.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think you've convinced me. I always wanted to keep him, by the way, but it's a tough one.
You got to be harsh.
You do. I mean, this is clearly why we just talk about football and not make these decisions, because we're so indecisive, mate. But we can change too. I'm looking at the sell line, and I think obviously Coutinho isn't there, but he is. I think with Coutinho and the wages off the bill, I think if you sell Kashi, I think if you sell Diego, I think if you sell Duran, and you get like the Dean, you probably get around 10 mil wages off the bill as well. Donk's wages. I think we can afford to move Dougie to the keep, right?
Yeah, I think so. Could you, if we run through that kind of list there again, mate, and say that if John Duran is a player that realistically I don't think we would take less than 20 million for. So if we use that as a kind of base figure, I think, 10 mil for Luka Dean is fair. I think, Middle East was someone that was talked about a lot last season. We know they will pay over the odds for a player. And so I think if a Saudi Arabian club were to come back in for Luka Dean, you could potentially inflate that, even if it's by a few million, could make all the difference. I don't know where the Dendonker's stock is at. It's also worth mentioning that whilst it wasn't for much, we already have sold Morgan Sanson. I think it's 5 or 6 million. And so that, that's money that we already have in the bank. I think that's kind of the same fee that you get for a Leander Dendonker. I think Coutinho are kind of in the same. So there's 15 mil between those players. John Duran is plus 20, so that's 35 mil. Luka Dean will say 10, that's 45 million. And Diego Carlos, was that 15 million you were saying?
Around 15? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll give him the benefit of the doubt at 15. There's 60 mil. So I think that's pretty hot. That's a decent chunk, I think, mate.
Dougie's in the keep, mate. He's in the keep.
I think so. It just depends. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like how we haven't been a great selling club in the past, but how well can we sell those peripheral assets for? And what can we get into replacement? I think, you and I, there was a lot of chatter in the comments on our first transfer room after the season about Ross Barkley, about, why are we going back there? Why would we want a player? We've kind of been there, done this. Look at that list down there. And if you want someone like a Douglas Luiz to kind of stay in the keep tier, you had to do a bit of wheeling and dealing this summer. You had to be looking for players on free deals, players with a year left on their contracts, because you don't want to have to be going out and paying 20, 30 million for every player, because all you're going to do is hamstring yourself for this summer potentially, but also for next.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I'm looking at that list. I know we said we'd allow ourselves 2. I think I'm happy with it now. We've moved Dougie up. I think the 1 is fine, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
Guys, you'll have to...
There's also a lot of players. Also, one last thing. There's a lot of players that haven't gone into that loan tier. But I mean, that's that kind of, you look at like someone like Joe Gauchi, someone like Souza. There's those kind of players there that could jump in and buffer out that tier.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. There's so many. I think we'll see a load of loans really from the academy guys and a couple of those people just on the peripherals. I think you're absolutely right. But guys, let us know your thoughts on our keep, sell, loan tier list. Let us know any changes you'd make in the comment section down below. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. It's free, and that way you'll never miss a podcast. So yeah, up the Villa.